the whole point is I want to give you some things, those of you who are parents, those of you who are professionals as well, some things you can literally, at the end of the conference, go home and actually try out and get some benefit with from your own children. So in order to do that, I just want to take a few minutes to explain a little bit about where some of these actual ideas and principles actually came from, how it originated, because I think that'll help you understand it. It was actually begun, the two people who started the Sunrise program and who developed the Sunrise program, they had their own little boy with autism. And he actually had very severe autism. He had no language at all, so zero language, no eye contact. He didn't like to be touched or held in any way. He would spend his days, like some of our kids, doing what many of us call stimming behaviors. In fact, one of his favorite things to do was he would take kitchen plates from the sink and he'd put them on their edge and he would spin them over and over again for hours. He would do this for 6-7 hour stretch. And he had a tested IQ of less than 30, whatever that means. And his parents were told, listen, this is a severe case of autism. We're really sorry. And then they were given what I think for most of us is what makes autism sometimes feel so devastating. It's not the diagnosis, which can be both helpful, and also for all of you parents out there, a lot of you guys were probably way ahead of the diagnosticians in terms of diagnosing your children anyway. But what is really difficult for a lot of us is the prognosis. The predictions about what all of our children are supposedly never going to be able to do or accomplish. And these two parents, they absolutely got that about their child. They were told that their child would never speak, would never have friends, would never go to a regular school, and would certainly never, grow up to have a job or live on his own or have a girlfriend or have all the experiences that for so many of us when we have our children, we kind of take for granted that this is what's in their future. And what's so great about these two parents is that they didn't buy into this. They were even told, look, when he gets a little older, you're going to want to put him in a group home or an institution where he can be properly taken care of. And instead, they did something really radical, which is they turned their backs on those predictions and prognoses, and they took their little boy home, and they developed their own home-based, very much child-centered program where they worked with their little guy for a little over 3 years. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they did a little bit later. I'm actually going to skip over that for a second, but let me go back here and just show you this. They called their program the Sunrise program, but spelled S-O-N because he was their son, you get it? See, if he was born a girl, they would have had to rework the whole name. But what they did was, this is what they did, and they did some things that were very different. I mean, the program, just that it was even created by parents was a real departure. And what happened was, at the end of those 3.5 years, was he emerged fully from his autism, totally recovered, like lived a whatever you'd call a normal life. No one knew the history. Ultimately graduated from the Ivy League's Brown University with a degree in biomedical ethics, all of which was not supposed to be in the cards for him. Now, I tell you this for two reasons. One, so that you could get a little picture of where these ideas come from. And two, because that little boy in the story is me. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you for applauding that. I appreciate that. I did it on purpose just for you guys. What the thing is the thing I do want to say, though, is this was something that in order for this to even happen, they first had to really decide they weren't going to buy into all of these predictions. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys face this every day with getting predictions about what your children are supposed to not be able to do. The best place to start is just to know that these are just made-up predictions. They're not any reflection of reality. I just want to show you a couple of pictures really briefly. That's me as a little boy. I really liked those little cups a lot better than I liked people back then. A slightly better, easier to see picture, that's me. I call that Raun Kaufman out to lunch, because that's what I look like there. And by the way, for those of you who have this burning question as you look at this, and I can understand if you're really curious about this, which is, how did that adorably cute little boy with all of that hair turn into this? I know, I contemplate this often. I can promise you, not a side effect of the Sunrise program. But that was me back then. And that kind of staring off look was the look. That was my look. That was the look that I had. I was kind of always off in my own world, which, although not shocking to you guys, is important because this is one thing that we started, my parents started to see really early was different about me. It wasn't just that I was missing skills. It was that I was in my own world, that autism at its core was not a skill deficit disorder or a behavioral disorder, although I did behave differently. It was a social relational disorder. Autism is it's a difficulty in creating connections interpersonally with people. That's what produces the diagnosis of autism in the first place. So this is important because it informs every area of how we might want to help our kids and how my parents helped me. I will show you this too. This is my favorite, actually. This is so sweet. I love this picture because this is my mom working with me. And what I love about the picture is you can see, especially for those of you who are closer, she's throwing her head back and laughing. And this real sense of delight and enjoyment. Sometimes we are so busy trying to help and sort of fix the problem that our kids are facing that sometimes we don't take the time to really enjoy and delight in the kids we have right this very second. And that's so important, not just for us, but because it helps to create the bond from which progress springs. One last picture, I'll just show you this really quickly. I just show you this because it's kind of cool how everything's come full circle. This is me working with a little boy named Jackson, who is actually the son of Kristen Selby Gonzalez, who is on a panel here and at a booth here. And he's a Sunrise little boy who's made enormous progress. And he loves that cartoon character, Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc., which is why I'm wearing it on my head. And what's great is that now I get to sort of hold hands with different families and kids walking down the same path that I once walked down. So I'm very excited to have this chance to talk with you about some things you can do with your own kids. After my recovery, my father, Barry Neal Kaufman, he wrote this book, Sunrise. We have this, by the way, at our booth, which is downstairs. That was turned into an NBC television movie, which was then seen by many millions of people. People started to come to us for help. In 1983, we started the Autism Treatment Center of America in Massachusetts. It is a nonprofit organization, which is important because we have money donated every year just for financial aid for families like you guys. And we can talk more about how to get that later. Anyway, we have a 100-acre campus in Massachusetts, although most of our families who come are actually, we have more from the West Coast than we do from the Northeast. So we have a lot of people who come there because all the housing and food is provided when you're there. Let's see. I just want to highlight this really briefly. I might be giving you one or two case studies, and when I do that, what I'm going to be referring to is I'm going to say this mother went to the startup program, learned this, and went home and used it with her child. What I'm talking about when I say that is that she or he went to our program where you go without your child. They went for 5 days. They learned all the techniques, then they went home and used them. So that's what I'm referring to, that program. Okay, now, everything about the Sunrise program and everything, and we'll only be able to get started today, but everything we're going to talk about is based on this idea, that the children show us the way in, and then we show them the way out. Right? This is important because everybody loves the second half of the sentence. Right? I know you do. I get that. I understand. Of course we want to show our kids the way out. But if we want to do that, we have to start with the first half of that sentence. We have to let them show us the way in. We have to cross the bridge into their world first, hold their hands on their terms, and then, yes, we can start to lead them back across the bridge from their world to ours. So that's the keystone. And that highlights an important difference in what even I'm talking about right now, which is rather than focusing on this behavior issue of like how can we stamp out the autistic behaviors and the stims and promote the normal looking behaviors, we ask how can we create a relationship with this child and how can we get this child to want to relate to other people. And that means that rather than forcing our children to conform to a world they don't yet understand, we start by joining them in their world, which is actually the very first principle. It's called joining. I'll tell you honestly, it's probably the most controversial piece of the entire program. And what it is it's basically, imagine this, all those stimming behaviors, the hand flapping, the repeating lines from movies, the running around in circles, the ripping little pieces of paper, right? Or if you have a child with Asperger's, the talking about airplanes or trains over and over again, right? All of that everyone's trying to kind of stamp out. Not only do we not stamp it out, but we literally participate in and join in with the very behaviors that everyone else is saying stop. Now, if you have never tried this or really seen this done in this way before, I can completely understand if you're thinking or wondering, wait a minute, this does not sound like a good idea to me. You're saying do more of the stimming autistic behavior with the kid? Isn't that going to make my child do it more? It's going to kind of make it happen more, almost make him be more autistic, right? And this is exactly what my parents were told with me, same exact thing. When I would spin plates on the floor like I told you I did, everyone said take away the plate, say no, stop him doing that, try and redirect him. And what my mom did was, whenever she saw me doing that, she'd get a plate, she'd sit down next to me, and she would spin with me, at first for hours. And you know what? Not only did it not make me spin plates more, it was the first time I ever looked at her, the first time I ever smiled at her, the first time I ever started including her in my play came from that. Now, granted, that's just one story, but now we've done this with thousands, literally thousands of children for 30 years from all different countries, all different ages, all different diagnoses. We've never seen it reinforce or promote stimming. What we see is the more we join, the more kids become interested in us, connect with us, and the less they end up doing stimming behaviors. Now, I still can understand you hearing this if you've never seen it and sort of saying, you just want me to take your word for that? So I understand if you, especially, and probably some of you have even been told this is not a good idea. So let me just throw out this idea to you. I want you to imagine that you've had a really hard, busy week, probably not hard to imagine, but this is the hard part to imagine. Imagine your spouse or someone else is they're taking the kids for the day. You have the day to yourself. You can do whatever you want. You can decompress from all the stress you've built up for the week. It's great. So you go to some nice park nearby. You get your favorite book by your favorite author, and you sit down, and you start reading. You start reading your book. And finally, after an hour of this, you start to decompress a little, and you're not so stressed out. You're just more involved in what you're doing. It's kind of nice. And then some guy comes up to you. I don't know, maybe some loud, bald guy comes up to you, right? And is like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Listen, there is a great movie playing just down the street, because I've been watching what you're doing, and you're just kind of sitting by yourself reading. I think it'd be much better for you if you come to the movies with me. I'll pay for it. It'll be great. And this is kind of jarring for you, but you're trying to be nice, so you're like, hey, you know what? Thanks for the offer. Listen, I've had a really hard week. I just want to sit here and read. I don't really like movies anyway. I'm wondering why aren't you listening to me? You know what? Maybe I just didn't get your attention. So I come over to you, I squat right behind, and I push the book out. I go, hi, how you doing? Eye contact right here. Okay, come on, let's stand up. Come on, let's go to the movies. Come on, this is going to be great. And now you're getting a little PO'd. So you stand up and you say, hey, listen, seriously, sir, back off. I just want to read my book, okay? And then it hits me like a brick. I should have realized this before. I'm so sorry. The problem is your book. It's very distracting to you. I mean, you're kind of obsessed with it. So, but I think if I get the book out of the way, I think you'll pay attention with me. So I go over, and I grab the book. You reach for it, but I go, after the movie, I'll give you the book. Right? And so I'm thinking, I've just figured this whole situation out. But the problem is, right, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know you ain't going to be going to the movies with me. In fact, next Saturday, if you see me approaching, you're going to take your book and run, right? But the thing about it is, and this is the important part here, guys, you're not going to run because I'm a bad guy trying to be a jerk and make your life hard. Actually, my intentions are good. I care about you. I'm trying to be helpful. So I'm not trying to do anything other than make your life better. I really am. I'm coming from a good place. The problem is you're not a mind reader, so you don't know that I'm coming from this place, that I'm just trying to help. All you know is I'm all up in your face, and I keep sending you this message. Here's the message. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Stop doing what, I know you want to do it, but later. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. And the thing about this is, of course we're doing that to be helpful. Why else would we do it other than that we love our kids? We're trying to help them. But again, they're not psychic. They're not reading your mind as you're doing this. So all they know is what's happening. And we're trying to say to our kids, please be part of our world. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Right? It's like, hey, listen, I have this awesome thing for you, buddy. It's called being part of our world. It's pretty cool. But here's the best part of it. If you leave your world and you become part of our world, you get to stop doing all the stuff you love and do all the stuff you hate. Isn't that awesome? Right? Now, if we know one thing, we know our kids are smart. They ain't taking that deal. Right? So the thing is we have to come at it from a different point of view. Imagine this, right? Imagine you're reading the book. It's a totally different scenario. You're reading your book. I come up to you. I'm a different guy. I come up to you. I don't say anything to you. I just sit next to you. And I start reading my own book. And I'm reading, and you're reading, and you glance over me briefly, and oh my gosh, what are the odds of this? I mean, you can't believe it. Not only am I sitting next to you reading, I'm reading the same book you're reading, which is your favorite book. So you try and keep your mouth shut and like focus on what you're doing, but it's hard. You can't believe it. So you're looking. Finally, you can't resist. So you have to say something. You're like, hey, how did you come across that book? That's my favorite book. And I'm like, oh my, it is my favorite book. Did you read the last one by this author? And I'm like, yes. So it goes back and forth. We get into a whole conversation about all the books that this guy wrote and everything. And then it's time for me to leave, and I leave. Next Saturday comes, I bump into you again at the park, I'm reading, we talk more. Now we kind of get to know each other, we know we both love this particular author. And this goes on for a few weeks until finally it's like the fourth week, and we're talking and I go, hey, you know what? Do you know next Friday there's a new movie come out? It's the new movie version of the book. What about instead of meeting here to read, we meet at the movie theater, we go see the movie. So here's the thing. What I just asked you to do is exactly the same as what I asked you to do the first time. So this principle is not about let's give up all of our goals for our kids and just join them in their world forever. Right? I asked you both times I wanted you to go to the movies with me. The first way was all about stop doing what you want, do what I want. I'm trying to stamp out your thing to get you to do my thing. And the second way was I form a relationship around a common interest. So you're actually interested. Even if you don't like movies, you might come with me anyway, because now you like me. So that's this key point, that it changes the whole dynamic. And remember, our kids they have a social relational challenge. That's at the center point of what they're challenged by. So we can't get past that by focusing on, in a sense, antisocial principles like stop doing everything that you like. Right? We have to do it based on how human beings have been creating relationships for thousands of years this way. This is not it's new to autism, it's not new to human beings. Like, we've been doing this forever. This is how human beings build relationships. So, and this is the very thing our kids are missing, so we want to do this with our kids. We want to help them with this. So what you're going to do, and I just want to say this real quick, and I want to move to another principle here. You're not going to join with everything they do no matter what they're doing, right? If they're crying and screaming and throwing things, you're not going to join with that. Even if they're playing a game with you, you're not going to join with that either. You're going to play with them. Joining is only for when your child is saying, I'm not part of your world right now, I'm part of my world, which means they're not looking at you and they're really focusing on a repetitive stimming kind of thing. And again, if you have someone with Asperger's syndrome, I know they don't hand flap and they don't do that kind of thing, I understand that. But that might mean if they love talking about all the trains that were built in the last 60 years, it's your turn to become a train freak, to become really into trains and get into that with them. I know you're thinking, then they'll talk about it 24 hours a day instead of 23 hours a day. But what I'm saying is, yes, the first hour, that will be what will happen. But you're going to create a connection which will enable your child to go your way more and more. That's what happens here. One last thing I'll say about this. This isn't magic. I'm not saying if you join your child, they're going to magically learn 50 skills. Right? They're going to toilet train and they're going to speak in sentences. Right? What I'm saying is this is going to open the door so that your child's connected to you so that you can teach that stuff. Right? And in fact, that's where the next principle comes in, which is, one thing I'll just tell you about this. I'm used to having a little more time here. If you want to know information, there are studies that back this up. Just the whole joining thing I just described to you. If you want to know about them, happy to cite them for you, but I'm not going to do them right now. Okay, the other thing I'll just talk to you, and this is the only other principle I'll do for right now. It's called motivation, and it's a good opposite for joining. Remember, you're joining until your child's connected to you, but then when your child is not stimming and is looking at you and is connected, that is the time to start to build new skills, especially socially oriented skills. And motivation is basically it works this way. It's not what a lot of people think it is, which is rewarding the child every time that they do what you want. Not that that's a horrible thing, it's just that a lot of times our kids are already doing this sort of robotic-looking kind of behavior. The reward system kind of makes that more a lot of times, because then they're just doing the thing you want to get the reward. We want them to actually learn the whole skill and enjoy doing it. That's what makes it really stick. So what ends up happening is motivation is so important for our children's learning, meaning their own interest and excitement is so important. And ultimately what we want to do is, normally what they're learning is very mismatched to how they like to learn. Right? You have a child count to 10 by counting 10 circles, but maybe they really like dinosaurs. And if you were playing a dinosaur game where they had to count out 10 dinosaurs, maybe they'd learn it faster. So that's what we want to focus on. And what we want to do is we want to focus on, I'm going to actually skip that slide. We want to focus on, instead of making the reward at the end, we start with what our children already like and then see how long we can stretch that out for. So these 3 steps say, first you join, then if your child starts paying attention to you, you start a game you already know they're going to like a chase game or a train game or something based on Disney characters, something you already know they're going to be into. And you do that with them, and you see how long you can stretch that, because that's already going to stretch their social attention span. And if you do that, that's going to be, I'm only giving you the very, very, very first step of it, but that's a good place to start. If you just go home, focus on joining your child in his or her world, and then when they start to pay attention, play a game you think they'll like, and then start to stretch that out a little more. Either see how long you can do it, see if you can get them to look at you more in the game or speak more in the game. And we can help you with that if you want more help with that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, there's studies that back that too, if you want to know. I'm going to skip all this for a minute if you guys would bear with me. These are some other principles that you won't get to hear about right now, but you can ask me about it. Let's see, that's some more research. I'm going to skip over that. Some more research. This is a 34-year-old man who went from no language to full sentences in 1 year. So I just want to highlight that this is not just for younger kids. If for a lot of people, you could come to our booth and ask us about this if you want. We have a lot of financial aid available. If you want to be able to take that startup 5-day training program to learn how to utilize these and many more techniques to help your children develop in that way, I'd be happy to help you guys with that. I'm going to skip over this. We have, the next programs are in December and February, in case you're wondering. And then if you come to our booth, there's going to be me there, and then there's going to be a guy named Brian there. And Brian, if you could just start to make your way. We have about 5 minutes left in the presentation, so we're okay. I'm going to have Brian come up. The reason I'm having him just come up for a moment is he is the dad, actually was the dad, of a boy with autism. Now his son, Jake, was diagnosed with severe autism, had no language, no communication, would spend his days completely encapsulated in his own world. He was diagnosed with autism and PDD. His parents, him and his wife were told that his son wasn't going to really progress very much. And they actually came to our center. This was several years ago. They implemented this with their son, and now their son is a high school kid who you would never know the history of him. But what I want to do is, Brian, if you could come up here for just a moment. I just thought you could give us because I only see Brian every few months. After his son recovered, he decided to come work for us to help parents get scholarships and get to the startup and everything. So he's a family counselor now. But I just thought you could give us like an update of sort of where Jake is and how that's working. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, it's Jake's so recovered. Sometimes he has to remind me of the fact a little bit. He's 16 now, and Jake's on cross country. This is his first year at cross country, and Raun talked to you about like 3 E's and really celebrating. And Jake's starting to come across the finish line. I'm like, yeah, Jake. And I'm like, going real big and really, really celebrating. I'm noticing more so than the other parents. Kind of unusually more so than the other parents. And Jake isn't the first kid. This is his, across the finish line. He's like in the bottom third, but I'm like really celebrating him. And afterwards, he comes up to me and we're talking. I'm like, oh, that was a great race, Jake. That was your first run. I think you did really well. And he goes, Dad, you need to dial it down a little bit. Because one of my goals is to make varsity this year, not next year. I'm like, okay. And he's like, sportsmanship is a big part of that, Dad. And you were a little over the top with me coming in at the lower third there, okay? So if you could just dial it back a little bit, that'd be great. I started to realize, yeah, like sometimes you get caught up in the moment, right? Like Jake, we were told he'd never speak, never dress himself, bathe himself. Now he's on the honor roll. He's a brown belt in karate. He's a track star in my book. And, doing really well, and actually telling his dad to dial it back a little bit. And that's probably a good thing because I can get a little animated. So I hope all of you the same thing. I'd love to speak with any of you. We'll be at the booth like Raun mentioned. And
thanks,
yeah.
man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I wanted also you to get a chance to meet him because we're going to be here for the next 3 days. We're going to be here today, tomorrow, the next day. If you have any questions or want any help with anything, and please feel free to come to us. Also, if you want to book like a call with a family counselor, those are also, we don't charge for those. If you want that, come ask us for them. You can get a video of an expanded version of the lecture if you want. If you want to come, we have the book down there too. Again, this is on the first floor at our booth. And also, I really want to encourage you to go to the website. There's a lot of totally free stuff you can watch. There's some tutorials, some lectures where we explain how to do different things with your children. So please go to that. There's some really great resources there. Let me just go past. Now, the last thing I'm going to say with my final 60 seconds is this. A lot of times I think it's easy because we're told, it's easy to be wary because we're told, don't have false hope for your child. Like, be careful. You don't want to have too much. You don't want to have false hope. And I just want to say one thing about that because I think it's become such a watchword in the autism community. I think it's kind of doing us a disservice, which is, what does that even mean for like false hope? False hope sort of means that hope is bad. It's going to hurt our kids. And all that I'm saying is, I agree, nobody should be making promises. All of our kids are different. They're all going to progress differently. But let's give all of our kids a chance and not, as parents, feel like we have to like apologize for that and not believe in our kids and not give them a chance. And if we just do that, we've given them the greatest gift we can give them. And for my parents, I can just tell you, for me, the only reason I can talk to you today is because these two people, my parents, believed in me and gave me a shot when no one else on earth did. So I will always be grateful for that. And the fact that you're even here at this really awesome USAAA conference says you're still looking for different ways to help your children, which means you haven't given up on them. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank you.